Hello and good afternoon. My name is Valjean Spahia. I'm one of the Solution Manager Architect and Focus Build Coach here at CoreALM. Welcome to our webinar on ChaRM and ServiceNow integration. Our goal today is going to be to take you through of our SAP and ServiceNow connector that connects these two tools together. So what we're primarily going to be discussing is who we are as a CoreALM company. We're going to look at change request management, or ChaRM and Solution Manager and ServiceNow, and then ServiceNow Connector, which is the integration tool that we've built as part of CoreALM. And then we'll go through a live demo, and at the end, we'll take some questions and answers. So please keep all of your questions. You can put them in chat as we go through the session, and then what we'll do at the end of the session, I will answer any of those questions, or if you have any additional questions. CoreALM, so we are a dedicated team of experts. We were founded in 2009, and I would say we have overall 50 years of experience within our team, probably even more. We're trusted by many of the SAP clients, so we've been fortunate enough to work with many of 100 and 500 Fortune companies here in US and abroad as well. We offer services around digital transformation lifecycle management, so anything with SAP Solution Manager, and also application lifecycle and DevOps. Some of the sample customers we've worked with, as you can tell, anywhere from ExxonMobil to Microsoft to Siemens and other companies, as you see, just to kind of give you an idea. Some of the clients that do trust us and that do offer references if needed. The services that we offer are around process, project, and portfolio management, which you see the first column in here. So anything around Agile project and portfolio management. We also have an Agile Scrum board that's integrated with SAP Solution Manager. Then also any Agile integrated tools such as Jira, TFS, Azure DevOps, and so on. We offer different types of integrations that you can integrate within SAP in case you have projects that are SAP and non-SAP. Also, anything on the requirements management within Solution Management, let it be if it's business or IT requirements. We also offer services around business process management. So if you're looking to scope your processes, or if you have an idea what your processes are and you're looking to model or build that process hierarchy or process flows based on SAP and non-SAP processes, that's something that we can bring some of the SAP tools like process management from Solution Manager to model those, or other third-party tools as well. In addition to that, we can help you monitor those processes in case you have any type of exceptions based on the KPIs that we can set up, and these KPIs are out of the box. We also offer services around test management. So anything from test strategy to test planning and execution as well, including performance and automated testing. Also on change management for ChaRM and ITSM. So primarily what we're going to touch on today, which is going to be the change control ChaRM of SAP Solution Manager and ServiceNow. But in addition to that, we're also going to go through the integration points to have all of these changes in one tool from an approval perspective. And then also we offer services around DevOps and run SAP like a factory. So anything around operations, if you're looking to monitor your system, whether it be technical or functional monitoring, we utilize Solution Manager for that. And then if you need any type of design for UX, UI, or development on ABAP or non-ABAP, that's where we can help you as well. We also offer coaching services around focus build and from a S/4HANA project management perspective, or if you're just executing or just started in a brownfield or greenfield project, that's something where we can come in and help you and coach you through the processes. Let it be if it's an agile project or semi-agile, that we can come in and help you how to document requirements and all the way to deploying them. Our engagement models are time and material, fixed cost, and also we offer some managed services if that's something that you're looking to outsource. Awards and partnerships. So we're an SAP certified Run SAP implementation partner. We've also been nominated 3 years in a row as a Pinnacle of Award finalist. So just from that perspective. Now this is our one of our new products, which is the Scrum board that integrates directly with SAP Solution Manager, but also integrates with Jira and Azure DevOps. So if you're utilizing multiple tools for SAP and non-SAP, you can bring everything into one place. An example would be that you see all of the requirements, regardless if you have a backlog in Azure or if you have requirements in Solution Manager. We can bring them into one place to give you an idea where all of your requirements are versus having to combine them in multiple Excel sheets. In this, it's actually real data. And in addition to that, you also have pretty much a traceability matrix from capturing those requirements to testing and deploying them. So the Scrum board has a lot of features in there that you can utilize, and it has a Kanban board as well, where you can move items and tasks from one item to another. It also offers a lot of progress overview reports and project reports like burn up, burn down charts and so on. And it has capacity management, where as you are assigning users to different tasks within a sprint or within a wave, then you will have a capacity management to kind of give you an idea how much capacity they have left based on that sprint. And then in today's session, what we're going to touch base on is going to be the ServiceNow Connector, where we have, in this case, you have your SAP Solution Manager here at the bottom that primarily is connected to all of your environments, such as your ECC, HANA, CRM, whatever SAP and non-SAP systems. And then at some point, if you're monitoring or if you're not monitoring the systems, we can help you monitor them from a technical perspective. But if you're already monitoring and using technical monitoring or user experience monitoring or interface monitoring, any of those, in case there's an alert being raised here in Solution Manager, what we can do is we have our integration automatically will create an incident based on the criticality of that alert, and it will create an incident within ServiceNow. So now, there's a lot of tools out there and connectors that will help you create an incident. However, that incident will never talk back to Solution Manager. So it's usually a one-way communication. In our case, our connector, what differentiates us is because our connector, once you create an incident in ServiceNow, and that incident is either closed or resolved, at that point, it also closes the alert in Solution Manager. So you don't have orphaned alerts back in Solution Manager. In addition to that, let's say in case you have a request for change within ServiceNow, or you have a change in Solution Manager that you need to have a CAB approval or any type of approvals, this is where our integration connector comes in, where you create a change in ServiceNow, and then that change will automatically create a ChaRM transaction or ChaRM document within Solution Manager, where you go through flows or workflows of creating a transport, and then passing that change to QA. Once you're ready to import it to production, it will communicate back to ServiceNow with all of the details. And then in ServiceNow, you will be able to approve it or reject it. And that way you can go back and implement it from Solution Manager. Usually what we have is 3 different types of phase cycles within SAP Solution Manager. You ideally have a continuous deployment. This is something that you have no phases or no gates, and then these imports usually are imported daily or weekly or on demand, depending, if it's an urgent change and you need to import something immediately. Usually the cycle is always open to import changes on daily or weekly or urgent changes. Then you have your phase cycle deployment, where this phase cycle, it's pretty much on phases. So depending, when you're in test or in go live, at that point you can test and you're not able to introduce any new changes in that phase. So it's really what it does is you have specific gates as that you can control. And ideally, this is more relevant towards a project or if you're doing, let's say, quarterly releases. That way, before you go live with that quarterly release, you have it in test mode where you're not introducing any new changes. You're going through integration and regression testing, and you're pretty much locking your users from creating any additional transports. And then once you're ready to go live, you would import this entire phase as pretty much import all of the transport that you created over the time, or the change documents. Then you have also release management, which is based on best practices of ITIL definitions. But you can also have minor releases within the release management. So anything that you don't make it within the actual release, it can go to the next minor release. So you can have multiple of those releases that you can bundle changes. The different types of changes that ChaRM supports, you have a normal change. Ideally, this is something that you can utilize for daily maintenance, and it also has integration with SAP Transport. You have a standard change. This is for very low risk changes. Ideally, what we call this is for changes that you whitelist. You know, it could be anything, maybe like security changes or something that we know it's not going to have an impact in our production environment if we introduce this change without having high-level approvals like CAB, for an example, and they are also independent from a cycle phase. So you could be within a continuous cycle that you're introducing these standard changes on a daily basis. It can also be used for documentation if needed. Then you have an urgent change. Usually this is, you know, if we have a process that's down in production or something that's not working, where we need to still get an approval because we're making an emergency change. However, it skips some of the phases so we can implement it as quick as possible. You have an admin change, which is only for documentation. So if you want to control your documents and then who changes what, at this point you would introduce this change. Then you have a general change. Ideally, this is for, you know, for mobile devices, printers, so anything IT related. And then defect correction, this only comes in within the test phase. So if you are testing a phase cycle or a release, at some point we run into an issue with the test case. At that point, we will introduce a defect correction to fix that issue that failed due to testing. Out of the box, usually the ChaRM workflow is that you have a requester who's going to create a standard, normal, urgent change or an admin. At that point, it will go to a manager who will set it to a validation and will also release it for implementation. Once a manager releases it from an implementation, from a request for change perspective, at this point, the change document is created and it's assigned to the developer who will create the transport it to QA, and then also we will involve the tester who will perform a test, and then we'll change the status to successfully tested or failed, depending if that test passes. At that point, when they are finished with the testing, and a best case scenario would be the test was successful, the release manager will take over all of the changes if it's a phase, or if it's a continuous cycle. At that point, the release manager will import these changes individually to the production environment, where as soon as the status is set to implement it, that RFC or that request for change within ChaRM will automatically be confirmed. Now, the standard workflow is that there's a request for change in Solution Manager, a change document is created, then it's assigned to a change cycle, which is really the environment that we're making the change on. What ServiceNow gives you, which what we see for most of our clients are moving to ServiceNow for any type of request for changes or incident creation. What the connector provides you is that you can request a change directly within ServiceNow. And if it's an SAP change, at that point, a ChaRM document will be created that will be assigned to a change cycle. And these two tools are integrated with a bi-directional communication for the workflow, which means you can map any workflow to any workflow to actually push the change without having to do it in two tools. So at the end of the day, this entire process on the left side here is happening in ServiceNow. And then as soon as that ticket is created, this point is we're passing it to our IT department, which is our developer and our configurator and the tester. We're testing that change. And then at that point, this requester here will confirm that change either in ServiceNow or in a Solution Manager, where we can close that change that was implemented into production. The requests for change that are in ServiceNow, that's a part of the ITIL. You have the normal change, which is any technical or change that requires a CAB approval. You have a standard change, which ideally this is Master Solution Manager standard change, which is a pre-authorized change or frequent change that does not require CAB approval, but maybe it still requires some manager or maybe a peer or maybe a lead approval. Then you also have the emergency change, which skips some of the manager approvals and goes directly to CAB, for an example, at the higher level, due to the urgency of implementing. And this is what we map to our urgent change within SAP Solution Manager. So I'm going to skip this slide. We already went through it. And then to kind of give you an idea what our connector looks like. So if you do decide to purchase our connector, you get pretty much an out-of-the-box tool where you can map what flows do you want to map to another. As you can tell, this is a bi-directional connection. So if you when the request is approved in ServiceNow, at that point a ChaRM ticket is created, and then when it's tested for production, it automatically will change the workflow in ServiceNow to authorize. So as you can tell, these are actually, you can drop down and you can pick the workflow that you want to change as part of the ServiceNow statuses. So to kind of give you an idea, what we're going to go through the demo today is we're going to create a new request for change in ServiceNow. As soon as we switch the status to assess and we approve it, at that point, a ChaRM transaction or a ChaRM document is going to be created automatically. Once we implement that ChaRM transaction all the way to QA, what's going to happen is going to trigger a workflow change within ServiceNow. At this point, it's going to request an authorization from CAB. Once the CAB authorizes the change in ServiceNow and sets it to schedule, it's going to change the workflow automatically in ChaRM. At that point, this is where the release manager can take all of the changes already improved for production, can import them into production, and then we will change again the workflow in ServiceNow to review where now the actual requester can take a look at the changes that were imported into production, add the close notes, and close the ticket, and it would also close the ticket within ChaRM. Also, in addition, what we're going to show you in the demo is as these alerts are coming from our managed systems, let it be from SAP HANA or any other systems that we're monitoring, they come directly within the alert inbox. At that point, we are gonna automatically create incidents out of those alerts, and then we're gonna resolve them and close them in ServiceNow, which will close them in the alert inbox as well. So those are the two items that we're going to show you today. And then, as you can tell, this is kind of the workflow for the incident management part. As soon as alert is created, at that point, a ServiceNow incident is created. Then you go through the normal workflow of resolving it or closing it. As soon as you do that, it's going to confirm the alert within Solution Manager as well. In addition to that, we also have a capability if you need to create an incident from Solution Manager or alert inbox directly, something that maybe wasn't set up to create an incident, you have that capability as well after you install and configure a connector. All right, so now we're going to jump into the demo. And if you just give me 1 second, let me get this demo ready. So now, one of the first things that we're going to do here is we're going to go to the ServiceNow and we're going to create a normal change in here. And then when you go to the ServiceNow, obviously you have all of the simple details in here. You have the number, different and different items. You also have a short description, which you're going to enter in here. So we're going to say this is a SAP change. And then if you want to enter additional description, right, we are going to make a security change. And then at this point, you have a different type of assignment group that you can assign. In this case, I'm going to assign it so at least you can categorize where this is going. And now, as soon as I set it to assess, it's going to give you, after you install or connect, and it's going to give you an additional mandatory field that says SAP change. This is where you decide if it's an SAP change or not. If it is, then it also brings up another field in here where you have to select what type of change do you want to create. If you do decide to go no, then you can continue with your normal workflow, which really at the end of the day, if you're already using ServiceNow for requests for changes and you decide to go with our connector, this is not going to break any of your workflows that you currently have. It just brings this into addition, and that way you can pretty much add it to your current flow that you have. Now, from a change cycle perspective, this is where similar, what we do in ChaRM, we're bringing all of the change cycles in here that you can select. So if a new change cycle is created, it will automatically trigger to bring it within this table in here. In our case, we're going to select a continuous change cycle. We're going to select a SAP SID, this is my target system, which is my client 803. And that's all we do for this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and submit this change in here. And then let me go back and find that change that we just created. So now, as you can tell, the change is still waiting to be approved, right? So what we have to do in this case is we're going to go ahead and go to the approval phase in here. Select any of the users in here. Go ahead and approve it. And as soon as that change is approved, it'll just take a second in here to refresh. But what's going to happen in the background is we're going to create a ChaRM ticket directly from here. So what I'll do in here is, as you can tell, it automatically populates with the ChaRM ID. It also gives you a link where you can go directly within that ChaRM ID. And then if you go in here, it tells you the status of that ChaRM ID that's created. Now you're going to click on Open in SAP in here, and it will open the ChaRM. And then you would select the ChaRM role. Ideally, you're only going to have here one of the ChaRM roles, not everything, based on what your role is. And then this is going to walk you directly through. As you can tell, so the normal change, it also takes the title that we entered. And then if I scroll down here, it also takes a description that we're going to make an SAP security change. So it passes all of the information. In addition to that, we're also passing the change ID as an external ID here for the ServiceNow request. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to go ahead and click on Edit. And then we're going to click to set it into Dev. And then we're going to go ahead and save it. And as soon as we do this, at this point now we are able to create a transport and then move on with this change, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and minimize the screen so we have some more real estate. Go ahead and create a transport within ChaRM, and this is all standard ChaRM process, even if it's not integrated with ServiceNow. A couple of more features that I want to show you in here as well. I'm going to minimize this. In case you are using test management and solution documentation within ChaRM, you can also actually add your test plan in here, which we automatically will populate the table within ServiceNow, and you'll see it. So the goal is here that when a manager is reviewing this request, or when CAB is reviewing this request within the ServiceNow request, they're able to see all of the information. So if you have a test plan in here that you're going to run based on this change, then we're going to automatically populate this data there. Also, if you have documentation, if you're using solution documentation in Solution Manager and you're attaching these to ChaRM, that's something that we're passing as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass here a process. So I'm going to search for a process just to add it in here. Let's say this one, requisitioning. And then as soon as that's saved, I'm going to go ahead and save this request in here. Now, The next thing that you primarily do is I'm going to go ahead and make a change as part of that. In order for us to pass that change from dev to QA all the way to production. So I'm going to go to PFCG just to make a quick change. And then we'll just pick a standard role, something that I don't necessarily have to make a change. So we'll just transport it and then add it to our, which was this one. This is a new change, okay? The next thing as part of ChaRM is you do have to release the task in order to transport the transport of copies into your QA environment. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and release that task in here. And then I'll also click on edit in here and transport these changes to the transport of copies to my QA. Now, as soon as I save this, the transport of copies are going to go in QA. This is where ideally you would go back and forth without actually releasing the transport within ChaRM until you are sure that those changes are successful. So take just a second to transport those changes to our QA environment, and then if you are successful, you can move forward. If not, you can go back to in dev as many times. This reduces the amount of transport that you're going to create within QA. So as you can tell, what I can do in here as part of my actions is I can confirm a successful test, or I can reset it to in dev and continue to work within the transport. So if I show you the transport in here, as you can tell, it's still changeable, even though if I select the transport of copies here are actually moved into my QA. Now, to go back to our ServiceNow change, at any given time, if you want to see what's going on with this ServiceNow, it's going to give you the ChaRM ID, and it's also going to show you what status we're in. So at any given time, if you're, for example, a manager, you want to see where this change is or this request, you don't necessarily have to go into ChaRM or open the ChaRM ticket to see what's going on that side. It also gives you a status update in here. The change is still waiting to be approved in here as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move this forward. So we're going to go ahead and confirm there's a successful test. And then our goal is that we're going to pass this all the way to until we need authorization to import into our production environment. At that point, when we need authorization to import into our production environment, that's when we're going to need another approval from ServiceNow. But just to kind of give you an idea, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this form in here. And then I'm going to scroll down. So in here, as you can tell, it gives you all of the transports in ServiceNow. It gives you the test management. If we had any test cases, it would show us the status in here as well. It would also gives us a solution documentation where you can have a link to go directly into the solution documentation and view that document. So really, we're bringing this data in here so that way you don't have to navigate to multiple places to view it. And as you can tell, it's all under this custom field that's in ServiceNow that they've created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to ChaRM in here, click on edit, and then we're going to go ahead and move this along. So I'm going to go, the way this one is, I'm going to go ahead and approve it as a preliminary import, which means that this needs to go before go live based on my phase that I have. For demo purposes. And as soon as that's moved, then we'll go back into ServiceNow and we'll take a look at the trigger that has changed. So let me go back in here. As you can tell, this is still saying it's an authorized status, and the change is waiting for an SAP update. So until we get to this stage, which is tested for production, what's going to happen is we're not going to trigger a ServiceNow status change. So what I'll have to do is I have to click edit again, and then confirm a successful test. Once I do this, what's going to happen? It's going to trigger ServiceNow, the status change. Okay, so now we are in tested for production import. I'm going to go back into ServiceNow. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and reload this form. So refresh it. And then now the change is waiting for approval. Now at this point, this is where CAB comes in. They would review all of the documentation, all of the test cases, all of the transports that you have in here, all in one place without having to navigate in multiple places. And then they would have their approver form in here. So as you can tell now, CAB is approving this change or rejecting it, whatever the case might be. But once this is approved and it is scheduled, and now as soon as I change this to implement, it's also going to change the status directly within Solution Manager. So now when we go back to in here, and then as soon as we click on edit, so we're going to wait for this change to go into implement. And then now as soon as we go in here into edit, you'll see that it has moved to authorized for import. Now this is where the release manager will take a look at all of the changes that are authorized for import at go live, and then they will import them into production. Now once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And now the changes have moved into production, which is going to trigger another status update within ServiceNow to review, because now since the changes have been imported into production, the requester needs to review before they close a ticket. Okay, so it looks like I'm having an issue here with my transports because it's now moving forward. Okay, let me just check the transports here very quickly. Okay. We'll give that another try in here. And then we'll import this into production. But ChaRM does have a lot of checks in here as well. For example, from a downgrade protection, also checking the status of these transports at any given time. Which looks like this one is having some type of issue, but we're not going to spend some time troubleshooting. But the idea is, if I was able to import this into production, what would happen is I would automatically change my status in here to review. At that point, once it's in the review, we're able to go to the next sequential status, which is closed, and add the closure details, and that's it from an integration perspective. But nevertheless, what we're trying to show you in this demo is that in this case now, to go through the approval, all of your requests would be approved within ServiceNow, where you have all of your documentation, which is your transport management, your test cases if you need to, your solution documentation. In addition to that, you'll have an idea exactly where that change document is in ChaRM perspective. That way you can go through the approvals and close the case. The next topic that I want to touch base on is going to be the incidents. In this case, what we have integrated the application operations alert inbox with incident management. So what I'll do is let me go ahead and find here some incidents that have been created just recently. As you can tell, for this one here, it's created directly from SAP. So what we have is what we pass in here is we pass a description, what environment, what category, what's the timestamp, and then what is the issue. As you can tell, this is an ABAP instance, does not have or does only have limited or even no resources left for dialogue processing. So an example, this is if it was a production environment and you don't have enough dialogue processes, this should be a very high issue. It also passes the priority, so this is a moderate from an alert inbox perspective, also assigned it to SAP support from an assignment group. It passes the alert ID. So if I click on here, I can directly go to that alert for me to review. So we're passing all of this information in here, an example that you can tell this incident is still in open status. And then you have different capabilities within this incident. This will follow the normal ServiceNow ticket procedure where you set it to in process, you would set it on hold or whatever the case might be, or cancel it completely. In our case, let's say that we are going to resolve this issue, but we'll set it to resolve in this case. And it looks like we need to add some information for the resolve. Part of ServiceNow in here, let's say it added more processes, and then update the status. And then we resolve this issue. So now if you go back to that alert inbox, we're gonna go ahead and confirm that as a closed incident, right? And at this point, what's gonna happen is we are going to close the alert that was raised directly from SAP. So there's a lot of tools out there that do open. For example, you can open a ServiceNow ticket from the alert inbox directly without through an email notification. But the problem with that is that if you open an email notification, then you have to go and manually close the incident and also close the alert. In this case, with this integration, what you get is that the status of the alert after the incident is closed within ServiceNow, it's automatically confirmed, and it also confirms all of these child KPIs that were collected over time, because the way of the alert inbox or the alerting works in Solution Manager is if you have a job that's collecting data every 15 minutes, and every 15 minutes, if that KPI surpasses a threshold, it's going to create an alert within that same parent. But this is what we wanted to show you today. I think maybe I missed one thing. So from a connector perspective, when you deploy your connector, you get this interface that runs on top of ABAP. Keep in mind, most of our configuration is done in ABAP, and ServiceNow we're doing very small changes, which is just adding those additional fields and building the communication. But you'll get the system preparation, but we also get a guide which it will drive. Will show you step by step what you have to configure. But from a high level perspective, it's really SAP transport. We perform the configuration in SAP. We import some XMLs in ServiceNow, and so on. So those are the prerequisite steps that you have to do. Once you do that, you will build the connection from Solution Manager to your ServiceNow instance. And then at that point, you would get into the change mapping. This is where you, would take some time, because you would have to obviously know exactly what flows you want to map from ChaRM to ServiceNow, or from ServiceNow to ChaRM. So in this case, what we have in here is when a ServiceNow ticket is created new, it's automatically going to create a ChaRM status. This is for an emergent change or an emergency change, as you can tell. But keep in mind, and what I'm gonna go back in here, and what's really important is that if you're adding a new change in here, you can map it to almost any any transaction that you have in ChaRM. So it doesn't matter if you have Z, or if you're using standard, or any type of transaction types. And then when you go within to map the workflows, it will bring the actual workflows that you have set up, even if they are custom. And this is something that it's very fluid. Even if you in the future, if you decide that you're going to change the workflows, you can come in here and say, okay, instead of successfully tested changing the status to implement, I wanted to import it into production, right? And then in that case, it changes it to review. So it's very fluid of what you can do in here within the connector. In addition to that, you get different types of reporting. So if you want to see an example, all of the reports for the phase cycle, which looks like I don't have any, but let me do the release again. If you want to see all of your releases and what they're mapped to, what ChaRM ID, what transaction, what the change status, what change cycle, and what is if they are assigned to a ServiceNow request or not. That's what we wanted to show you in today's session. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and open the call for, or actually we'll take any questions here online. So what we're going to do is Sherry is going to go ahead and read those questions to me, and then I'll try my best to respond to them. So feel free to type all of your questions in the chat within the GoToMeeting, and then we'll answer them. And if there's something that we cannot answer in this call, you can contact us directly here at CoreALM, and then we'll be able to either, if it's a complicated question, set up a session or answer it through email.
Yeah, so actually, Valdrin, it's Doug. I'm going to be answering your question. So, so we got a bunch of them here. So the first one is there's two related to validation. Has your ServiceNow connector been deployed in an FDA validated environment?
Yes. So we again. If you're a ServiceNow and your ChaRM is a validated environment, the connector is just integrating those tools together. But yes, it would suffice a validated environment.
All right. And there's another question from the same person. It says, what FDA validation services does CoreALM offer?
So we offer services from a validation perspective. I think that's maybe besides to everything that we went through here in this demo, but from a validation perspective, we have coaching sessions from capturing requirements all the way to building those requirements, including digital signature and deploying those to production, and also provide full traceability of any of those changes that are moving through. In addition to that, between what we showed you today, if most of these approvals that are happening in ServiceNow, that would be pretty much all of your validation changes.
Very good. And I've got two basically here that they're asking the same thing. The first one says, we run ServiceNow and Solution Manager for technical monitoring and ChaRM. How long to deploy your connector? And then I have another one that's basically similar, just asking how long does it take to deploy it?
It just depends. So if you have Solution Manager already set up for technical monitoring, you're looking to deploy our connector just to have that integration between ServiceNow and Solution Manager, that's fairly quickly because it's really our connector is out of the box, meaning that you can take the transport, deploy it, do the configuration, which is really just a connection between the two tools, and it should work out of the box. Now, if you have to set up technical monitoring and so on, then that would require some prerequisites, but that's more on the standard technical monitoring setup versus our connector.
Okay, very good. And so then there's another one here regarding technical monitoring. We have technical monitoring installed and working, but we're not using the alerts right now. Our alert inbox is filled with thousands of alerts. Does CoreALM offer any services to help adjust the thresholds?
So we do help most of our customers from a threshold perspective. Ideally is you would set up technical monitoring, and then you would have some type of hypercare phase where you constantly are reviewing those monitor and find that sweet spot where you need to change the threshold. But we can help you with management and setting the correct thresholds for all of your KPIs that you have set up for any type of application monitoring from Solution Manager.
Okay, very good. Here's another question. Snow and ChaRM integration is additional load to the change order to fill out the required information in both places, right? We are currently managing everything in ChaRM itself. So I think he's questioning whether you have to fill out the RFC in both ChaRM and ServiceNow.
No, you do not. So what we're doing is we're actually removing the RFC from ChaRM. We're creating the RFC in ServiceNow. Now, our connector does work both ways. So if you start a change document in ChaRM and you want to create an have that ChaRM document create an RFC in ServiceNow, we have that integration as well. Where that's something I didn't show you in the demo, but you can trigger a RFC in ServiceNow. But to have two RFCs, you could, but that wouldn't really. I would say it's overhead to have two RFCs to start two requests for changes, one in ChaRM, one in ServiceNow.
Very good. All right, another question here. We have ChaRM running in our dev environment, but haven't moved it to production. We're also finishing our ServiceNow deployment. Can you guys help us finish and move our ChaRM to prod as well as integrate the ServiceNow connector as well?
Absolutely. Yes, I mean, that's what, depending on what you've set up so far in dev, but that's something that we can assist with.
Right, okay. Let's see, can you discuss the cost part of the integration from CoreALM?
Not on the webinar side. So if you're interested in the connector, you can contact us and then we can discuss the cost and the maintenance fee as well.
Very good. I have another question here. How do you handle more than one change document for one request?
Good question. We can have multiple change documents per request. The reason why we don't show that in the webinar, so if that's something that you want to see, we can schedule another follow-up call to show you that. But then the reason why is because we would have to move two changes all the way to production, and it would take us more than an hour to do. But yeah, you can have as many. A good example would be is that if you have a PI change and if you have an ECC change for the same request, you can have two different change documents within the same request in ServiceNow.
Very good. Okay, and then on the technical alerting or technical monitoring side, how is the repetitive alerts handled for incidents in snow? Example, the failed, an alert that repeats a number of times during the data collection. How often is that incident created in ServiceNow?
Mm-hmm. So as I explained in the demo, if for the repeated alert, we only create one incident. However, if you do close that alert, at that point, it's going to create another incident because now that before that alert or that incident is closed, it should be resolved and you should not see that alert be erased again. But for the repeated ones, until you close it, they're only going to pile up within that parent, but we only create one incident in ServiceNow.
Okay, good. Let's see. So we have another one here is we like the integration, but our current requirement is that we have to maintain the RFC in ChaRM, but we would like the authorizations for production, for the move to production to occur in ServiceNow. Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible because what I showed you in the connector is we can map to any workflow within a change document. So if your RFC is starting from ChaRM, at some point within the change document, we can trigger the workflow to open a request for change in ServiceNow where you would have to be approved for production and then trigger back into the ChaRM ticket to import it into production or authorize it. So that's possible as well. So even if you want to utilize both RFCs, that's possible.
Very good. Okay, we've got a couple about pricing. It says both of them are saying who should we contact in terms of pricing as well as doing the integration work.
Doug, you want to take that?
Yeah, you can just send an email to info at CoreALM.com. That's probably the easiest way to get that information, and then we can reach out to you. We'll have to, for us to actually do the pricing, we have to ask you a few questions to understand what the level of work is, but that's the easiest way to handle it. So if you're interested, if you could send an email to info at CoreALM.com, that would be fantastic. Let's see. I think that's for the most part. I think there's a few other questions here that we're going to handle offline, but I think that's all the questions we have for now.
Okay, very good. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful day.